Let's talk about Tottenham and the manager situation and the player situation and what has been a pretty painful season for Spurs fans. But I think it's good to actually chat about what might be going on at Tottenham because it certainly is quiet, and that's not because there's nothing happening. Of course, there is a lot of work going on in the background. Daniel Levy is a very busy man trying to source Spurs' next manager and trying to make the correct appointment so that the club can avoid having what has been an extremely painful year this year, again next year. Spurs are still in European places. It's not all bad news. Obviously, they haven't had the best of seasons. They've fallen away from the Champions League places. The Antonio Conte eruption and then eventual exit led to assistant Stellini stepping in as caretaker, and that caretaker has now been replaced by another caretaker in Ryan Mason. So certainly not your normal state of affairs at Tottenham Hotspur. However, the idea that they're not doing anything to look for a manager, the idea that they're just waiting for next season and then going from there is not true. Daniel Levy is now a very busy man, obviously, because Patricia has now left the club. And he has to get the right man in. That is so important. So who are they actually looking at? Well, Julian Nagelsmann has been liked by Tottenham for a long time. They liked him when he was at Leipzig and he was potentially in for the running for the Spurs job previously. And we understand that talks have begun. An approach has been made by Tottenham for the German manager. Obviously, he left Bayern Munich and he was in the running from the Chelsea job. That never came to fruition. He was a favourite with people in the walls at Chelsea. And Nagelsmann stepped out of the process for various reasons, but Tottenham are now maybe going back to look at him again. They want to make sure that they get the right appointment, and Daniel Levy can't afford someone to come in who is going to be, well, not kick on straight away. Tottenham fans probably won't stand for it. The thing is as well, this manager needs to be capable of convincing Harry Kane to stay. That's going to have a big weight on the decision. Harry Kane is getting to the age where he's in his 30s now. He is coming to the last year of his contract in 2024, and it might be more valuable for Spurs to keep him and allow him to go for free than sell him for a price that they're probably not going to get from Manchester United, who are extremely keen. Manchester United would like Harry Kane. They'd like to bring him in, but we can talk about that at the end of the video. However, let's get back to the managers. Nagelsmann, of course, like I said, has been approached and been spoken to. Is the possibility of bringing him in something that Spurs can do? Does he still want to come into the Spurs job? He wants to be back in football next season. He wants to be working by the summer, and Spurs is offering that opportunity with Mason taking them to the end of the year and then Nagelsmann coming in to take the job. Now, the whole European Champions League being imperative for Nagelsmann isn't actually true, because he was very much considering the Chelsea job and they're nowhere near Champions League football next season. So that is certainly something that needs to be wiped off the plate, that if it's not the Champions League he won't go. That's not true. He's looking for somewhere he can build success, he can bring in players, he can put his style of play and impose it into the team and hopefully build on that into future success. That's what he's looking for. He's seen that at Chelsea until that fell apart, and he could potentially see that at Tottenham too. But this is where Daniel Levy must come in and back the manager. Now, Spurs has actually spent a lot of money, and Levy often gets criticism that he doesn't back the managers well enough. I think Tottenham can go for a certain type of player right now. They are, at this point, certainly coming into this summer, we'll talk about, not going to be as attractive as those in the Champions League, which it looks like they're not going to get. And that is a problem. But they can shop smart, right? They can buy clever. Certainly if they sell Kane, they'll probably get 85 million plus for him. And that would bring in enough revenue to bring in a good striker replacement. Who would that be? Maybe you're looking at the likes of Lautaro Martinez or someone along those lines. Maybe Ivan Toney could even come in. It's an interesting situation to watch if Harry Kane does go, because where do they shop for someone to get as many goals as him? That's so unlikely. And that could put off a manager. If Harry Kane's not there, does a manager want to come in and try and work with a striker who they know they're losing 30 goals a season when Harry Kane leaves? Luis Enrique is another one who is in the running, was never as close to the Chelsea job as some had suggested. The idea that he was one of the final candidates for the Chelsea job, it's a bit misleading. Certainly he was on the short list that got cut down, but he wasn't as close to it as maybe some had suggested. We're obviously waiting for the former Spurs boss, Mauricio Pochettino, to stand there with the Chelsea shirt as the new guy. The final contract is being prepared on that one. But does Luis Enrique fit the mould? A man that's worked with Barcelona, a man that's worked with lots of young players, but he's worked with extremely talented football players at Barcelona and at Spain, and is this the time for him to come in? Does he believe he would be backed? Well, he's in the running too. Don't rule out the likes of a Brendan Rodgers. Should the Nagelsmann problem of paying him out from Bayern Munich, because it is quite a lot of money, is something Daniel Levy doesn't want to do? Is a Brendan Rodgers who's available on a free someone he looks at and thinks, tell you what, because I think Brendan Rodgers could do quite a good job at Tottenham. As a manager that has taken Leicester into European football, that won an FA Cup, that also did extraordinarily well with Liverpool and nearly getting them to the Premier League. He won everything he could at Celtic, and it's a man that works well in the market, could bring in some players at a good fee and maybe build a Spurs squad that is more capable of a sustained challenge in that top four over the season. Because the problem Daniel Levy also has is Newcastle, is Manchester United, is Chelsea, is Liverpool. These guys are going to go again, and the competition in that area is getting tougher and tougher every single year. Can they convince Julian Nagelsmann, we want you in and we'll back you in the market with £200 million so you can sign this and this guy? Can they convince Luis Enrique of the same thing? What about Amaron at Sporting? The idea of him leaving is getting less and less, but a guy that has been extremely admired by so many people because of what he's doing with the Portuguese club. People coming in on a budget, using the youth through the system and building a team that's put a sustained challenge in Europe, that's put a sustained challenge in Portugal as well, and he has certainly got a good way about him in the market as well, a good way about him in the media. This is a man who certainly will move from Sporting at some point. It's just a matter of when than if. And if Nagelsmann, who right now Spurs are probably favouring towards, doesn't happen, is that an option they could go and get? But again, you have to buy him out, right? You have to buy him out. And of course, that question I was raising before about who's going to be at Spurs next season, well, that's a big part to play in it. Manchester United, as I said, are pursuing Harry Kane. They'd like Harry Kane at Old Trafford next season. They are looking at the possibilities and starting to make moves to bring him into Tottenham. And if they can do it, they will. He has become their kind of number one striker target, although they obviously have looked at the likes of Victor Osimhen at Napoli, but the competition for his signature is rife. Manchester United also need to know what they're going to be able to spend next year. Is it going to be Qatari billions, or is it going to be still the Glazers' money? We'll wait and see on that front. But Harry Kane's becoming the front runner in that area. Gonzalo Ramos as well for Man United looking as well. What about Son? Real Madrid have had a long time interest in Son. However, his season has obviously not been the best. But could they see this as an opportunity to get him under the value they would have previously had to pay as well? And then you've got lots of people on the fringes, like Harry Winks at Sampdoria, currently on loan. He could leave potentially, although perhaps that doesn't put a manager off. And Spurs are also going to be looking for a centre-back in the window. The likes of Sanchez and co have obviously come in for heavy criticism at Tottenham, and that is an area Tottenham are looking to strengthen in the summer as a centre-back. And they look like they will spend a little bit on a centre-back too. Are they going to beat certain cities and things to Gvardiol? Probably unlikely, but they certainly have the ability to bring in someone more than capable of shoring up that defence. Certainly more than it has been this season. It's an imperative few months for Tottenham Hotspur, an imperative few months, but they are looking to try and convince Julian Nagelsmann to come in and take over at the London Stadium. One thing to note is it's been a highly stressful season inside the walls of Tottenham. The players have felt it. Obviously that gone onto the football pitch. The fans have felt it. And these are a group of players in a club who have been criticised by a high-profile manager in Conte for being bottlers, for not being able to play under pressure, for not winning anything in 20 years. And you can argue yes or no if he was right in what he said, but that has put a lot of pressure on the shoulders of Daniel Levy, who has to get this appointment correct. If they can convince Nagelsmann, that might give fans a bit of excitement, a young manager who's highly sought after, who's highly thought about coming in and bringing his knowledge into Tottenham Hotspur. Or they look at Ryan Mason, and Ryan Mason staying at Spurs as the permanent manager, certainly a possibility, one to keep an eye on, but my thinking on that personally would be he would get that job if Spurs fail to land one of the other targets, i.e. Enrique or a Rodgers or an Amaron or a Nagelsmann in this case. It's unlikely Mason would get that job on merit full time. I mean, let's be real, if he comes in and he wins every single game from now until the end of the season, then he's got to be worth a shout. But the reality of that happening at this point in time feels very, very low. For you Spurs fans who are watching this, you'll be pulling your hair out this season. You'll be wanting it to end and move on. But the questions are much greater moving forward than they are now in terms of who's in the dugout. Who's your lead striker? Is Harry Kane still there? And how would you feel if Harry Kane left for free? Let me know in the comments below next season. Would you rather keep him now and have him for a year and then let him go for free next summer? or would you sell him now? Because that is kind of where we're at. Harry Kane has not signed new deals, so it's a big, big, big question mark over Tottenham Hotspur right now. A lot of things for Daniel Levy to fix, but the process is ongoing for them to try and do that. My understanding is Julian Nagelsmann has been approached. They looked at the likes of Luis Enrique, Brendan Rodgers, who's obviously available on a free, Amaron at Sporting, and Ryan Mason has put his hat in the ring to try and stay full-time after the season ends, but obviously we'll see how he gets on. Big months ahead for Spurs, big months ahead for you Spurs fans, and what is happening next with Tottenham. Thanks for watching, make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheerio.